While you're just having a look at the back of the room, I do have some of my resources. You have a few chances today to look at those resources, but there's just a display there. In a few moments, I'm going to cause a disruption in the classroom because in a few minutes we're going to regroup according to our teaching situation. So, for example, some of you will be doing multi, like some of you SMP, SMA, but whatever you're doing, if you're focusing more on first language teaching, then I want you to find other teachers that are similar to you. If you're focused more on second language or junior, second language maybe and junior can go together. We'll do that. So if you could regroup yourself according to your teaching area, that would be helpful for this next session. But before we do that, I'm going to explain a bit about what we're doing today. So, once again, selamat pagi. Ya, bagaimana? Sudah siap belajar hari ini? Ya, bagaimana kelas? Ya, biasanya kalau di Indonesia, kalau di Australia, ya saya mulai dengan selamat pagi kelas, selamat pagi Pak. Saya Pak Daniel, tapi kadang-kadang saya dipanggil Pak Bradbury karena di Australia sedikit aneh bilang Pak Daniel. Ya, itu harus pakai nama keluarga. Did you know that Pak does not equal Mr? Did you know that? In fact, if you say Pak, you are giving respect. But did you know if you say Mr, it's rude? Did you know that? Ya, ada orang yang paling panggil, hey Mister, hey, kenapa? Mister, it's actually if you're angry with someone, you say, hey Mister. But if you want to show respect, it's Sir. Okay, you know that. Not every Indonesian person I bet knows that. Okay, a little bit before we begin. Yesterday, we talked about why we learn Indonesian. What are the reasons? I talked a bit about my own story, what my motivation to learn Indonesian. And I wanted to paint a picture of the people out there who are learning Indonesian, especially, of course, as a second language learner. We talked about some positive Indonesian programs in Australia. We looked at some of the examples in Australia of video clips of schools and even universities. And I can show you more of these if you'd like to later. But it's very encouraging, I hope it's encouraging for you to see that Indonesian is a very important language in my home country. We talked about the things we find difficult, and I really appreciate everything you've written because this is my homework. You understand? This is my homework. So what I take from this session, I go to work. I look for resources. I look for ways to help you. Communication with the leadership of the school. This is my commitment to this program. But we also talked about the positives, a lot of good things. Today, I want to explain what we're doing because today we're going to do things quite differently. In the first session, we are focusing entirely on the challenge of working with multi-ability and multi-level students in the same group. So it's actually a very challenging topic, but I believe there are some strategies that we need to consider. Maybe some of those strategies will challenge the way you do the class completely. Now you know this phrase, student-centered learning, yeah? As opposed to teacher-centered learning, yeah? Because traditionally, let's be really honest, in Indonesian classroom, yeah, traditionally, is it student-focused or teacher-focused? It's mainly all about the teacher, right? I'm being honestly critical. But one of the important strategies that we in the Western culture have to understand is we must make our learning student focused. So which style do you think is more suited to SPH? Student focused or teacher focused? Put your hand up if teacher focused is appropriate for SPH. Student focused. Anybody believe student focused teaching? If that's the truth, when I say student focused, you understand what I mean. I don't mean we ignore the teacher. We need to show respect to the teacher. When I say focus, I mean the goal is learning. The goal is not the teaching. The goal is learning. It doesn't matter if I'm wonderful, expert, clever, brilliant in all of my teaching style. If you're not learning anything, I have failed. You have failed if your students are not in learning, engaged, and so on. That's our first session. The second session is, I've talked to Mr. Philip about this, and we've decided that second session, if you are second language, which is my main expertise, then I would like to give you a presentation that's really, really helpful on how to engage the second language learner. If this does not involve you, you still have a choice. You can still be part of it, or if you want to join the main session during the second session, then that's up to you. So we've decided that the second session is very valuable for you to join the main session, or if you want to listen in on this session, that's up to you. Okay? Yeah. So that's for a second language. Second part is curriculum options, again, more suited to second language. So the whole second session, much more for second language learning, or for, of course, I think for SD. If you're a SD teacher or a second language teacher, then session 2 is very good. Session 3, we're going to start to plan some important strategies for our future, beginning with next week, and then thinking about the next year. So just to recap, next week, as you know, I will be visiting one day, I will be visiting each campus. And this is really, really important because in this session it's very difficult for me to communicate with all of you, but next week I will have a whole day in each campus. If you're not sure about that program, please come and see me later. But each day, I think Monday I'm going to be in, is it Pluit? Yeah, Tuesday in Command Village. Wednesday is Chicago, I think. And Thursday is Sentul. Friday is back here. Okay? So if you, what I want you to do is think about how you would like me to be involved, because there's two very important things. Number one, most important, is observation. Part of the program and the discussion with the leadership at the school is for me to have an opportunity to observe your class. It's not for me to give you a tick or a cross. It's for me to understand what your challenges are in that classroom. Okay, that's why I'm in the classroom. Number two, motivation. If you would like me to spend part of the session or part of the day running a motivational program for your students, then that's good too. That's also an opportunity for me to help to motivate them. So that's two sides to my visit. And it's up to you how you would like that time. Okay. We're going to begin now. So what we need to do is we need to move ourselves around. If you're not on the table with people for a similar teaching situation, then it's probably a good idea for you to shift. So we maybe spend 2 minutes, see if we can reconfigure ourselves with other teachers in similar teaching situations. It's not perfectly the same, but similar. Okay? Okay. Nah, kalau sudah siap, kalau sudah di grup, pertanyaannya sebelum kita mulai adalah apa faktor-faktor yang kalian menghadapi dalam mixed group, mixed level. Ya, kita sudah bilang ada masalah, itu susah. Tapi susah kenapa? Apa susahnya? Bagaimana mixed level atau mixed group, atau mixed ability merupakan masalah bagi kalian? What we need to do is I want you to list 5 reasons why you believe that working in a mixed group is a problem. What is the problem? This is very important for you to discuss. Think of 5. You don't need to make a huge list, just a small box is okay. But you need to list together 5 factors. Misalnya, are they students not interested? Other things, think about why. What are the problems before we discuss? Okay, maybe sudah ya? Sudah ada beberapa? Yang penting ada lebih dari 1. Maksudnya, masalah ini memang multifaceted ya. It's not just one issue. When you walk into your classroom, you are walking every single time, in every single class, into a mixed ability classroom. Don't just think, oh, it's just the Bahasa Indonesia program that has this problem. Every class in this school has the challenge for the teacher of a mixed ability, mixed level. Nah, memang lebih parah ya kalau Indonesian program because you have huge differences sometimes. That's okay. We're looking now at the factors. What are the things that create the differences? What I want to do is maybe from each table just call out one factor that you think is important that you have observed. So, nggak usah pakai microphone ya. So, one from the front. Satu ya.
Motivasi.
Motivasi. Okay, motivation is a factor. Yes. Next table.
Pemahaman siswa akan bahasa Indonesia.
Okay, so you really pemahaman siswa dalam bahasa Indonesia. Okay, yang di belakang.
Intensitas exposure bahasa Indonesia kepada murid.
Okay, intensitas exposure ya. Menarik juga. Okay, dari belakang.
Manajemen kelas jadi kacau.
Yeah, management. Yeah. Okay, so jangan kacau. Cool. Yeah, class management is a big factor. Yes, dari belakang.
Karena ada program bahasa Mandarin, jadi kelas bahasa Mandarin, ada bahasa regular, anak dengan level regular, dan ada anak yang basic, yang baru belajar bahasa atau yang sudah mulai belajar bahasa atau sudah lama belajar bahasa, campur.
Ya, maksudnya latar belakang dalam pelajaran bahasa Indonesia itu beda-beda ya. Ada yang sudah bertahun-tahun belajar bahasa Indonesia, ada yang baru. Ya, okay, that's a big factor. Okay, di tengah, tinggal ya.
Kebanyakan anak-anak yang kita dari second language group di SMP dan SMA, kebanyakan anak-anak yang di second language class itu juga IT students.
Okay, yeah. So why is that? So ada kebanyakan atau tidak semua?
Tidak semua. Jadi dengan tadi yang seperti bilang videonya ada, baru datang ke Indonesia sama yang sudah 5 tahun di Indonesia terus ada di situ, terus ditambah ada beberapa yang IT.
Ya, oke, ada dua faktor yang penting di situ, latar belakang dan juga kurikulum yang IB program yang cukup berbeda ya. Yeah, so that creates a big gap. Okay, over here.
Second language itu persiapan materi.
Sorry about that. Mau tambah?
We were talking about IDP itu seperti like every child is at risk academically. So from the learning support they provide a individualized education plan, which creates a different dynamic in the class karena mereka harus spesial sekali gitu ya, diferensiasi
Untuk bahasa Indonesia atau untuk semua?
semua kelas.
Semua kelas.
Nah itulah jalan tantangannya.
Ya, ya betul sekali. But of course, that challenge. I mean, that's the same in my country. We have the same problem, the same challenge of someone in the class. But sometimes in Australia, what they do there is they have a special program for cultural studies. Daripada belajar bahasa, hanya belajar budaya. Ya, aspek-aspek budaya daripada belajar bahasa. Misalnya kalau mereka tidak tahu, tidak begitu fasih dalam bahasa Inggris, kalau lagi belajar bahasa Inggris mungkin dari negeri lain, tidak dipaksa belajar bahasa Inggris dan bahasa Indonesia, hanya bahasa Inggris dan aspek-aspek budaya. So that's what we do in Australia. Tapi di sini mungkin
Tidak ada policy.
tidak ada.
Karena kan kebijakannya di sekolah ini dari SPH itu adalah semua siswa itu harus tahu bahasa Indonesia. Jadi kecuali karena misalkan pemilihan mata pelajaran di SMA-nya tidak bisa menggunakan bahasa Indonesia, baru ada pelajaran itu, tapi bukan untuk murid-murid yang mengalami learning disability. Jadi learning disability tetap harus masuk dalam pelajaran. Karena itu kebijakan sekolah.
Dan ya cukup banyak dalam kasus seperti itu, cukup banyak. Ya, dan tiap kelas ada 1, 2 atau bagaimana?
Banyak.
Cukup banyak ya.
Ya, jadi misalnya gini, kan kita kalau misalnya ada anak yang punya IEP atau learning disability, kita biasanya pisahkan. kalau di language B atau second language, kebanyakan yang IMP di language B. Jadi saya pernah memisahkan 4 anak individual chair. Jadi kan maksudnya 4 itu terlalu banyak. Kalau saya harus satu-satu di dalam 4, padahal mau kelompok, mau ini.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, these are very important factors. Thank you. We just continue quickly. Yang beda ini belum?
Ya, jadi mungkin persiapan materinya sih.
Oke.
Jadi kan kalau satu kelas ada 3 level yang berbeda, berarti sepertinya kita bukan mengajar satu kelas, tapi kita mengajar 3 kelas.
Yeah. Okay. So that's right. The preparation of materials is a big factor. How do we appropriate that material? We're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. Ada yang lain? Okay. Dan di depan ada lagi atau? Ada lagi?
Yang pergaulan atau lingkungan.
Maksudnya di kelas atau di?
Faktor itu mempengaruhi mereka di kelas. Karena kalau misalnya di rumah mereka sering pakai, sering ketemu, tapi ada juga murid yang selalu bergaul hanya dengan orang dari negaranya saja, sehingga mereka masuk ke kelas walaupun ketemu yang sama, ada disability, tapi itu mempengaruhi
That's true. And this is a big factor, isn't it? That when, the language that a student uses in the class, not just the class but in the playground, yeah, that's actually the language that becomes their first language. Not mother tongue, that's mother tongue is what they were brought up with their parents. But first language, I would consider the language they are moving towards. So for many students, English is the standard first language. Even if they speak Indonesian faster, English is still their first language. Do you understand why I'm saying that? Because the number one reason we learn a language is for relationships. Number 2, business. Number 3, we do other things with language. But the number one reason you are speaking to each other is because you have relationships. Humans have relationships. I don't mean just close relationships, but relating to each other. This is what we do. We speak a language. So you must always remember that fact. That it's very easy to say, well, yeah, penting sekali belajar bahasa Indonesia, penting sekali. But if they don't see an emotional reason, relational reason to learn Indonesian, they will never be motivated. That's what we have to give them, an emotional, relational, motivational reason. But let's look now at some of the factors that I listed. Some of these are similar to you. Age and maturity. So in your class you have different ages sometimes. This can be factors. The maturity of the students. You can have some very mature students and some very not so mature students. All of this I'm putting on the PowerPoint. You will be given as a handout next week. Okay, so don't feel you have to note everything down. You will be handed this information put together. But I didn't want to give it to you before because as I'm discussing with you, I want to adapt what I do to be what is most helpful to you. That's why I give it to you next week. Language ability, mother tongue. Okay, so what is the mother tongue of the student? This is a very important factor. And of course, how does that fit into their culture? This is another fact we have to remember. Next one. Now, when you say language ability, there's 2 reasons here: language talent, language ability, mother tongue, and natural talent. So some of your students, ya pintar dalam bahasa Indonesia, itu hanya karena kepintaran dalam bahasa, bukan karena latar belakang mereka. That's a very big factor. Sometimes your students will be, ya sudah bertahun-tahun pakai bahasa Indonesia di rumah, but actually in the classroom, they're not really brave, ya, tidak berani menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Tapi ada juga yang pintar. Saya sendiri memang tidak belajar bahasa Indonesia. Ya, sampai tahun umur saya berdewasa itu 19-20 tahun. Are they highly motivated or are they disengaged? This is a factor. You have students highly motivated, there are some disengaged. Now, many of those are just very bright academic students. They will work hard in your class because they are hardworking students. As you said to me yesterday, one of you said to me, they're grade focused, yeah? They're grade focused. That's what matters to them. In fact, most of your students, probably in this school, they should be motivated by getting good grades. Who siapa mendorong mereka ya? Itu memang orang tua. Yeah, because they want to get good results so they can get a good job. That's of course the motivation. Learning styles are an interesting factor. Learning styles, they may have a different learning style. Some of them learning, they can hear. They're very good at learning by listening. Some you have to write everything down. Some they have to see. Different learning styles. Learner autonomy, yang ini yang penting. So some of your students may be very good at learning alone. You can give them a book, they can sit in the corner and they learn. Others, they have to be in a group of people. So this is important factors, not just ability. Although ability in language is a big factor, I want us to look at the whole range of factors when we understand our class. This is very important. Of course, previous learning of language, as we said before, when they brought up speaking Indonesian, do they learn Indonesian at school? Even that second language. Kalau saya di Australia, kalau saya ke sekolah SMP, sepertinya bisa ada setengah yang belajar bahasa Indonesia. Waktu SD ada yang mulai tahun pertama SMP kelas 1. So that's a big problem for us. We have two groups of people, one for 6 years have been learning Indonesian, and other ones who first year. So we have to treat those ones like they're little baby children, and others sort of dewasa. Yeah, it's very challenging. Now, tell me, do you have these experiences, this kind of comment in your classroom? Half the students have finished an exercise when the other half have only just begun. It's a problem. The stronger students get bored if I spend time explaining to the weaker ones. Yang di sini yang bosan gitu kan, karena kita jelaskan pada orang yang belum tahu. We've got a syllabus to get through, but most of the students are already behind. So you may have a standard that already set, and you're trying to rush because you already set the standard, but the students way back here. So you're serving your syllabus, not serving the student. But many times you have to do that. Kita harus misalnya kurikulum atau lesson plans harus berapa minggu sebelumnya sudah dipastikan. Itu biasanya beberapa minggu ya harus di-submit ya. Every term, yeah. So you already have a commitment that you have to keep up to this standard, yeah. That's a challenge, isn't it? The stronger students dominate. Yeah. So you find that the ones with the ability, they tend to do all the talking, and the ones with the weak students they just feel terrible because they think, oh my goodness. And so semakin lama semakin apa ya, ke latar belakang mereka, it's like they fade into the background, and that's a big problem, isn't it? The weaker students sit at the back and start disrupting the lesson. Behavioral problems. Is this a factor? As a result of disengagement, do you have students that are actually cause a problem in the class? Yeah, behavior problems. What year levels is this a factor for? Do you think it's right across, or is it more for younger, or more for older? Maybe all. Yeah. Okay. The weaker students don't even try. Ya, banyak yang sudah berapa tahun, mungkin sudah SMA. Tapi mereka percaya, ya, nggak bisa, nggak usah coba. So they just sit, they just do the minimal, just do minimal. I just do the little bit I have to do. Tapi tidak ada motivasi. Because mungkin 5 tahun sebelumnya mereka sudah maybe they make a decision, aku nggak bisa belajar bahasa, berarti aku nggak coba. So every year they're just sitting in the class, disengaged. It's like the message is coming over their head. It's not going here. Yeah, it's not actually going in. I don't know where to pitch my lesson. I have students here, I have students here, I have students here. Aku nggak tahu mau arahkan ke atas, ke bawah, ke tengah. Aku bingung sebagai guru. Yeah, I think we all feel like that sometimes. The weaker students are always asking me things in their own language and want everything explained in it. So they don't want to use Indonesian. They just want everything in English, and the stronger ones are happy to have the instruction in Indonesian. What is your stipulation? What is your rule about using Indonesian in your class? This is important for me to understand because every school is different. Kalau di Australia, kalau saya pakai bahasa Indonesia dengan anak itu bagus sebagai pengalaman untuk mereka experience. Tapi kadang-kadang ada yang tidak mengerti saya, so sometimes it's important for me to use English so they understand what I'm saying. Yeah, so for me, kalau literature misalnya dalam bahasa Indonesia itu dalam bahasa Indonesia, tapi kalau grammar biasanya dalam bahasa Inggris. Because I really want them to understand the concept grammar. Lebih baik saya pakai bahasa Inggris untuk menjelaskannya. Yeah, if I use Indonesian to explain, they won't understand what I'm saying. So I use words like verbs and nouns. I don't say kata benda, kata kerja. It's not really makes sense to them. Some of the weaker students try so hard, but they still get bad marks. Apakah ada yang lemah yang mungkin mau coba tapi hasilnya mereka sedikit masih kecil. So it's really discouraging for them because they feel they cannot achieve the high marks. So that's some factors that we face. What are the challenges? We look at some challenges and then I'm going to talk about some strategies for you. Alright? We're going to talk about that together. First one, the challenges you face, learners may be from different abilities, different skills, different learning styles, motivation. They may find it difficult to provide content that is suitable for all of the class. Yeah. What about materials? Is your materials suitable for your different range? Or is it just for mid? Is it for high, for low? What materials do you have? And is it flexible? Ini juga masalahnya. Nanti kita akan on the next lesson talk about textbooks. The problem with textbooks many times is they're the lessons in them are just like this. You can't go up or down. It's not flexible. I'm interested to know why the school generally doesn't use much in terms of textbook learning. Anyone want to explain where the school, what are the challenges or what are the reasons for using text or for not using textbook? Yeah?
Well, in my language class, we use textbook related to science and
Yeah.
Those were used for grade 3 up to grade 6.
Yeah.
It started off by dividing into 9 chapters, we divided into 2, then we covered it all later.
Yeah.
So the reason we need to use that is because we don't have an actual instruction set of plan to conduct our materials and to achieve our expectation. The second thing is that I find it highly inflexible in terms of catering to multiple abilities. However, it's step by step that we could have as a resource because there were no placement tests, there were no clear leveling system. We used New South Wales curriculum from 2010. There's no it wasn't good curriculum. There's not really a clear set of expectation for each level of language. You know. Different than if you were looking at Common European Framework. They have the placement tests, everything, but we can't really use that because that's different than the language. So that's kind of
Okay. One more.
In IBP 1B, it is not suggested to use text because we want all materials to be primary sources, such as Quran, majalah, video, it is not just nice English. So teachers need to develop as much as possible to
Okay.
develop ourselves.
Yeah, and memang that's got some advantages, some disadvantages, yeah, because the availability of good materials. Okay. So put your hand up if you are currently using a textbook. So only a couple of you. So most of you are not, and most of you are developing your own materials within your campus or across. Or do you, how much sharing are you doing between campuses? Gak banyak, ya? Okay. Well, that's something we also good for us to consider in the future. But we just continue to talk about this topic. What are some other challenges that you face? Participation. More advanced learners tend to participate more. Weaker students tend to feel left out, making it even harder for them to gain confidence. So it's the strong get stronger, the weak get weaker. You're not really helping them to come to the middle. Individual awareness and monitoring. Now this is a very important challenge. You know when you walk into your classroom, you do not have the energy to give each student individual learning. You have the whole class to think about. Very, very difficult. This is one of the greatest challenges of every teacher in the school. How do we monitor, evaluate each individual student? So to follow the progress of weaker students, teachers don't have the time to individually work with those students, so they tend to drift into the background and just again fail or do minimum or whatever. So this is very sad, and this is what we need to work on, how we can overcome these challenges. We said before, discipline. Hard to control classes when learners feel frustrated, they lose concentration, they get bored, or they give up. Saya di Australia sering ketemu dengan anak murid yang mungkin kelas SMP, kelas 1, 2, 3. Kalau sudah kelas 3, mereka sejak kelas 1 sudah dapat keputusan, saya tidak akan belajar apa-apa. And so they just sit there, the whole class. And it's very sad, because they think, I'm no good at this. So they switch off. Okay? Effective learning for all. In mixed ability classes, it's difficult to provide effective learning for all learners. The content or activities in a lesson may be too easy for some, too difficult for others. So we just said that, trying to find an effective learning method. Right. What we need to do now is do some positive things. So we're going to look at, I believe, some very helpful ideas. Some of these may be useful, some of them you may think, oh, I don't think that's possible. But we're going to talk about it anyway. But again, let's look at them together and consider. On the page you have, the pages, what I want you to do is to turn it over one, and I want you to come up again. Now this is thinking about the difficulties. Think about strategies that maybe you have already tried, or strategies that you want to try to help get through this. It's very important for you to think before I tell you the answers. So 5 things, strategies that you are using or have used for mixed level or mixed abilities classes. Maybe you say, oh, I don't know. But that's okay. Think about some strategies you may use, and then you can add to that from the literature. Let's continue now for a few minutes. We've only got a short amount of time to go, so I want to talk about some strategies. And then, if we have a chance before we go to break, I'd like us to spend a little bit of time together planning a lesson that actually incorporates these things relevant to a topic. Okay, so we'll just have a look at that as an opportunity. So strategies that I thought about. Firstly is, do you have a supportive learning environment? That means where learners feel confident, able to perform the best of their ability. That of course means, are you ready to be flexible inside your classroom? That could be a number of factors, not just the teaching. It could be the way you set up the room, all kinds of environmental things. So the next one is like that. Classroom management. For example, you may have all the students in a circle, so that no one feels they're just sitting at the back disengaged. So everybody's equal, everybody's in the front row. So that's a factor you may decide to use. Classroom layout, and so on. Learning to learn. Teach your students about how we all have different learning styles. This is very important. Many students compare themselves to another student. And they say, oh, you're really good at learning by hearing, or I'm really good at, I need kinesthetic learning. That means things I'm using with my hands. Personally, I could not learn Indonesian without flashcards. That's my personal thing. I cannot look at a book and learn. So I write everything down on cards and I memorize. So for students who are weak, you know, using games and cards, things like that, can be very helpful for them. Take them home, practice them, giving them a tool so they can catch up to the other class members. So encourage students to recognize what actual learning styles they have. Are we aware that there are different learning styles? Do you realize that? Your students can be very different. The variety of topics, methods of teaching, focus, materials and activities. So varying topics, varying materials. Not just saying, all right, every lesson we have, we do the same thing. You basically have a test of vocab that goes like this. You have, you know, if everything is the same, you will be helping some students and not helping other students. But by changing the way you do a lesson assessment, for example, you will actually maybe cater for the different needs. Does that make sense? Different learning styles. Grouping. Learners should have plenty of opportunity to work in groups or pairs. Are you changing your classes? So today, we're going to work in a group of 5. Tomorrow, we're going to work in a group of 2. And the next day, you have to do individual work. So being able to change the situation in the classroom constantly to help the students work differently. Some students need to work in pairs. Others are very good on their own. That caters for different learning styles. Pace. Keep lessons moving at the pace of most of your students. Now this is of course a very challenging thing. If you go too fast, someone goes behind. If you go too slow, someone forward. Right? So this is not an easy decision. How fast do you move? But maybe this is where you need to have feedback from the students. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? And that's helpful. Interest. To help keep students interested, learn what topics or activities interest your students. Now, do you involve your students sometimes in deciding what kind of topics or what kind of activities they might do, giving them options? Maybe you can't give them the freedom to choose the topic, but you can give them the freedom to choose the activity. For example, doing a field thing, they have to go out into the playground and have to find, you're talking about, I don't know, nature, you're talking about, I don't know what you're talking about, but, find things that are outside or find things in the shop. You may be talking about, for example, Bahasa thing, you can research something at a shop. You go to the mall tomorrow, I want you to find 5 items that are in the mall that you can describe for me using adjectives in Indonesian. Like ibu ke pasar, you might say saya ke mall. Ya, di mall ada, di toko Gramedia ada buku besar, buku kecil. So they have to explain some descriptions about it, and that's fun for them because they all go to the mall. So think about things that they are already interested in doing. It could be doing sport. So they can do a project about the sport they do, not just the one you tell them. They can choose their own interest. So giving them some rules, but giving them some freedom. Collaboration. This one is a loose word, but teaching the students to work together. So this is where I saw peer teaching, like some of you here, yeah. So this is very important to, it's obvious, the most obvious thing for me is the strong should teach the weak, yeah? This is really good if you give the strong students a responsibility to teach the weaker students. They should be excited about that. They should not be upset. That's not what I want. I just want to learn. No, because what do we say? When I hear, I forget. When I see, I remember some. When I teach, I remember all of it. if you teach something, you will always remember. And so I would encourage my strong students to actually work maybe one lesson every 5 lessons or something, to actually take one of the other students and to teach. So that's a challenge, but that's probably a good thing if we can do it. That's what I said. Grouping students strong with weak also has the advantage of the stronger student teaching the weaker one, but giving the stronger student a purpose. Yeah, purpose. They have a purpose if they are helping. Individualization. Allowing students to work at their own pace, in their own style, and choosing their own topics. Now, of course, sometimes you cannot do this. You have to work out how much can I do this in my classroom. And then they present a portfolio of work to you. Developing an individual learning plan. Rather than you spending all of your time speaking and teaching, they are working and they're learning, and once a week they have to report to you their goals. They set out goals and they have to report to you what they're achieving. This is, I think, especially good for very strong students, because rather than they can be in the side of the classroom over in the corner doing their own work, and you can focus on the weaker students. The strong ones, they basically do their own work and come and show you. I don't know, this is just an idea that may be relevant to you. I think this is a very important one though. I call this compulsory plus, or compulsory plus options. So you only make some of the assessment tasks compulsory, so that it's the weaker ones can handle that, and then you make plus options. So you decide level 1 options, level 2 options, level 3 options, and you decide which students have to do those options, and you have to set that. So the obvious example might be a 200 word or maybe 150 word piece of writing, but then there's 300 word for this student and 400 word for that student. You set the challenge for them. Same topic, but you set the different challenge. So you're not teaching them different topics. And of course, adapting materials. Often texts are set at one level. Teachers may need to adapt materials to different levels. What we want to do now is I want to ask, does anybody have other ones you'd like to add to the group that you have on your list that we haven't talked about that you think are important? Again, I will collaborate, I will gather this later, and when I send you a report of what we have done, I will add in some of the things that you have said. So, but for now, does anybody want to share some of the strategies that you think are really important to you? Ada lagi? Ada tambahan? Ada? I was looking at some of your strategies, looking very good. Very good. Okay. Now, did you know that there are actually advantages in multi-ability groups? It's actually an advantage. Traditionally, did you know schools were not all the same age? Traditional, going back 1,000 years, people learned multi-age together always. But after the Industrial Revolution, our society in England and Europe began to put children in the same age group, in the same room for management. Actually, I personally believe that is a negative form of learning. Let's think about it. If you're in a room and everybody's of the same ability, who can lead? Everybody's just doing the same thing. It's like chickens, just all being fed the same. So you don't have that strength of the rich pool of resources here. Yes, each student brings a different perspective and an ability, and you have to see this is an advantage, not a blockage to your program. We have to turn this into an advantage and see how we can be positive about that, because it can enhance your program. Like in families, a class with mixed abilities should be there to help each other. Is your culture in your class to help each other? Are students there to help each other? The strong seeing their role to help the weak. This develops learner autonomy and independent learning. Okay, there's some very important factors there. All right. Now, just to finish with last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 15 or just under 15 minutes before break. So what I want to do now is I want you to choose a topic You can choose a topic. I've just written some cuaca rumah saya di sekolah, makanan, pakaian, bahasa, hobi, whatever. I want you to choose a topic, and I want you to design, sketch what your lesson might look like, and I want you to try to imagine you have very strong and very weak in your class. Now, this is very important for us to collaboratively share our ideas. Right? What do you do? Gaining what you've already written, not just strategies, but I want you to actually create a lesson plan now. Choose a basic topic, something you already know all about, and I want you to spend 5 minutes developing a plan for lesson. Okay? Talk together? Yeah, that's okay. That's good. We haven't got time to go through all this, but we'll keep that, and later we might bring back a bit of focus on that. But I wanted to say just quickly, next lesson, if you're still wondering about to come next session or not, next session is my favorite session because it's the thing that I do in schools. And this is what I do, and I give students tools, grammar tools, understanding how to build Indonesian grammar, because for people who are looking at Indonesian from the outside, Indonesian grammar looks confusing. But actually, I think of it as like one big step, and that's nice and easy. But you have to show students the tools, and I want to give you some helpful tools in understanding how to explain Indonesian grammar from the outside. Pronunciation is a big focus. I really want to spend some time on pronunciation. For example, I do not believe that any student has to say orang, barang. They can say orang, they can say barang. And I can guarantee they can do it, and I will show you how to make them do it. All right? So, because I'm tired of students, I can't say that, I just say barang. Well, they can, and I'll show you how they can. Self-awareness of your language. So, just before we finish, just for a moment, guys, the key is teaching the students to become self-aware. Aware of their own language, aware of their own mouth, aware of their own sounds. That's a key. I'm going to show you a little bit of my own background. I have a major in linguistics, and I've developed some interesting tools to help students to see how language works. And then the latter part of next session, we're going to talk a little bit about some curriculum. We'll look at some textbooks briefly, and then we're going to look a little bit more at the resources of my own. So if you have a chance when you're going out or coming back, do have a look at the resources at the back, and I hope you have got something out of this lesson. Next session is very different, but you can take some notes, and we'll even have some handouts and some worksheets, so I'm going to treat you like a class, okay? Okay, so if you could bring your paper sheets down the front, that would be helpful, and then I'll see you after break. Welcome to your language. Who would like to read the message on the board? Anybody would like to? Put your hand up if you'd like to have a go at reading the message on the board. Can you do that? Yeah. Okay, I think that is me. Well, you almost, you were right in decoding it. Well done. However, when it comes to pronunciation, remember that English speakers have a very different language to Indonesian speakers. Their language, your language, you are native English speakers, so you talk, for example, you might talk like this, if you're coming from the United States, or perhaps you talk like you're from a New Zealander, you talk like this. That's right, that's what New Zealanders sound like. Australians talk a bit more with a slightly open mouth. Maybe you're coming from India, you're talking a bit like this. What you're saying is a bit different. You understand? If you're from Canada, you're kind of talking like an American, but you say things like out and about, and so your accent's slightly different than the American accent, right? Accents are fun. What I like about accents is they show who you are, they show where you're from, they show your identity. Even Indonesians, you have many accents. If I go to Kupang, beta mo mandi memang. Lu pun nama siapa? Beta pun nama Daniel. If I go to Sulawesi, siapa nama Daniel? DP nama anu? DP nama siapa? So I lived for 2 years in Sulawesi, so I had to learn that. In fact, it was so normal to me to speak like Sulawesi that when I came to Java, into Jogja, oh, that's really, really strange. People talk strange, but that's okay. It's all different. But did you know, I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read this to you the way it is written. Because unlike normal language, which is phonetics, can you read this? That's just normal English. What you have here is the phonetic alphabet. And there's a reason why we must use the phonetic alphabet to decipher true English. Because this can only be read in one way. I will read it to you exactly the way it's written. There's a police message for motorists in the centre of London. A lorry has shed its load in Parliament Street. You are asked to avoid the area as much as possible. Southbound traffic will be diverted for the next 2 hours. That is the end of the message. Now, if you think I'm putting on an accent, I'm not putting on an accent. I'm speaking the phonetic transcription that is there. For example, this word here says, not diverted, it says diverted, diverted. That's actually what it says, diverted. I'm not putting on the accent. You know, what I mean, I can talk like this if you want me to. I can talk like something English. But that's not what I'm doing here, right? You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything more fun than talking and enjoying yourself, and that's what we want to celebrate with Indonesian. Indonesian is a language that you can enjoy speaking because it is a beautiful, fun, adventurous, interesting language. Be proud of that. Oh, sorry, no, you're a native English speaker. When you learn Indonesian, you will be proud of that, right? But what I want to do is focus a little bit about understanding your language, because your language called English is completely a problem when it comes to learning another language. Oh, Indonesian's really easy to learn, isn't it? Yeah, except that you are English speakers and you are already set like concrete in a way of thinking that you can't break out of. I can speak a bit of Bahasa. Yeah, I can say I can say a good phrase. Oh, I like this one. It's Selamat Datang. Yeah. I can say Selamat Datang, yeah. It's a phrase in Indonesian and it means welcome. So Selamat Datang, all of you. Now, let's be honest, no teachers will talk like that. No. But let's think about the vowels. I mean, the consonants, Selamat Datang, they sound okay. But what about the vowels? Selamat Datang, Selamat Datang. Wrong. 5 out of 5, wrong vowels, completely wrong. So every part of that phrase, Selamat Datang, is completely incorrect. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Completely incorrect. And this is a problem for you when you're learning Indonesian. Because you don't even hear that you're saying, for example, this word, Datang. Well, that's Datang. It's just not what you're saying at all. So what happens in, you might go to, I'm going to the Taman Kota. Taman Kota, yeah? Taman Kota. So, like, what is that? Is that a Taman?
Yeah.
And then what's this? Kota. Kota. Is that what you're saying? No, just Kota. Oh, what's this? Why is it 2 vowels in there? Kota. Hear that? We have 2 vowels in there. Alright, so what we want to do is have some fun here, because learning in Indonesian requires an understanding of what's happening in your mouth. Frustration is a burst hot water bottle, or loathing every moment of a holiday you are paying a fortune for. Hey, it's Australian. It's using the wrong side of the sellotape, forgetting what you were going to say, or locking yourself out. Frustration is other people parking in front of your garage, or a stranger reading a riveting letter on a bus and turning over before you get to the bottom of the page. That's my accent. Right, here we have anatomy. Anatomy lesson. In your mouth, this way, you have 3 components to speech, 3 important components. The first one we use is the front part of our mouth. bibir, yeah? So our lips. What sounds do we make with our lips? What the next component we have in our mouth is our teeth are important, but not really important. We can still speak without teeth, can we? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe listen to old maybe doesn't have teeth, so they can still speak, but they sound a bit different. But you can't speak without your tongue. Right? So your tongue is incredibly important. When your tongue touches certain places in your mouth, you make certain sounds. For example, behind your teeth, and you put your tongue behind your teeth, you say d, d, or t, or and so on. And the back part of your tongue, you make other sounds too. So your tongue is very, very important. What I want to do for a moment though is to focus on the vowels. Because if you speak Indonesian, you must get the vowels right. I believe that speaking good vowels is 90% of good pronunciation. Yeah? Kalau kita berbicara, what I've done there is all the vowels wrong. Kita, the k, the, they're all correct, but the vowels are what messes me up. So what are vowels? What are vowels in fact? Vowels are a position of your tongue inside your mouth. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because you speak, but you don't think about how you speak. You just speak. You just talk. You just talk the words you're used to. But I want to show you what's really happening inside of your mouth when you speak. So you've got there in front of you English vowels and Indonesian vowels, and that represents the space inside of your mouth. So your mouth's over here, your teeth. This is a gap. Now when you go to the doctor, he says, I want to look in your throat. Say which particular vowel does he ask you to say? Ah, because ah is down the bottom. So in your chart, somewhere down the bottom, you can put ah like that. So you write it on your chart. Does anybody not have that sheet? Okay, so ah is the bottom vowel. Ah. But what about when I have a photograph and you say cheese? Well, think about it. E, not E. E. E is up here. E. 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 Let's think of some words. My friend, Pete. Pete. I've got a friend, Peter. Or I like to see the sheep. Sheep. Look at the sheep over there. E. Now I know that sheep has two E's in it. I don't want you to think about the actual letters. I want you to think about the sound. Sheep. Sheep. Now I'm going to confuse you because just for a moment, you're Indonesian people. This is going to be really hard. I'm going to show you something. Just inside here, there's another letter I, but it's got two lines on it, like a capital I. And guess what sound it is? E. E. So, E and E. E and E. Do they sound the same? Well, domba versus kapal. Sheep, ship. Sheep, ship. Now, in my experience, not many Indonesian people can tell me those two words that sound different. They sound the same. Ship and ship. Can you make them sound different? Sheep, ship. Sheep, ship. This is important. As we come down, we have, we know this one? So, for example, I have a pet animal, a pet. So far we have 1, 2, 3. Over here I want you to write them down like this. E, and I want you to write the name Heat. Heat. Don't worry about the spelling. Heat. E. Number 2. E. Hit. Heat, hit. Heat, hit. Number 3. Pet. 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 Now, the next one is my favorite. This is a really cool letter. Okay, did you see that? You want it close up? And the sound is ah. Ah. A totally un-Indonesian sound. Ah. Can you say ah? Good. What's my name? Daniel. Not like most Indonesian people I know who say Dan or Den. It's either Dan or it's Den. It's not Dan because they can't say Dan unless you're skilled people like you who have learned how to do that. Say Because if you think about it, if you don't have that vowel, you only have this one and you have this one, you can go this way and become Den, or you can go that way and become Dan. You're not going to go up here and say Din. So you only go to the closest word. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4. And the word is hat. Hat, the animal hat. The next one is hut. So like a golf hut. Hut. I'm giving you English words. The next one is just on the other side of the line, and it's an upside down A. It's upside down A, and the sound is O. Hot. So so far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. The next one we're going to have is just like this. Or. So this is off. This is or. And the English word and the Australian version is a bit different to the American one, but we have this word here. Now Americans port and Australians port, or British port, because we don't say that we say that port, we have a long vowel, port. So can you hear the difference between hot and port? Don't think of the R, think of the sound, hot, port. Alright, we come up here. Number 8 is ooh. Ooh, and Indonesians love this sound, it's a very Indonesian sound. But English has it too. Ooh, put. This is when I give you another sound now that doesn't exist in Indonesian. We come in like this. Number 9 is ooh. Can you say that? Ooh. Not ooh, but ooh. And the word is boot. Can you say boot? This is an English word. Not boot. Oh, put your boots on. No. Put your boots on. No. Put your boots on. Put your boots on. It's a different sound, isn't it? So far we got 9 vowels. Number 10. Maybe this one's my favorite. I think this is the coolest sound of all. It's right in the middle, and it's upside down E. Now, upside down E is a very important sound in English. In fact, if you didn't know this sound, you would not sound like an English speaker at all. You would sound foreign. This is the difference between a foreigner and a true English speaker. This sound. I'll explain it in a moment. But the sound we're going to use, the example, is in the number 7. Not the first E, the second E. 7. Oh, how many would you like? I want 7. I want 7. Oh, a word like banana. I want banana. Banana. If you say banana, do you sound like an English speaker? You say banana. Banana. Yeah. I'm not going to do 11, I'll just leave it as 10, but this one here is a key sound, and I want to focus on it for a moment. Because in English, we have words like this. How do you say that word? Photograph. Or if you come from Adelaide, you say photograph. Did you know that? So if you come from Melbourne, you say photograph, and Adelaide, photograph. If you come from England, photograph. If you come from America, photograph. But the point I'm making is, have a listen to the sounds. The second one is not behaving like an O. It sounds like a photograph. Oh, I like to take photograph. So that's being not English, isn't it? Photograph. Photograph. No, it's photograph. photographs. And that's the difference between sounding like an English speaker or sounding like a non-English speaker. Photograph and photograph. Let's try saying it. Photograph. Photograph. Okay, so you're sounding quite natural English speakers when you say it that way. Did you know in English we have a rule, and it's a special word. It's called the anti-penultimate stress rule. Okay? Anti-penultimate. It's a Latin word, and it means, ultimate means the last, penultimate means the one before last, anti-penultimate means the one before last. That's actually what it means. Another way to say it is third last. So we count backwards in syllables, and this is English. Photograph, which is the strong one? 1, 2, 3. Now watch what happens when I extend the word with one extra syllable. Photography. Photography. So now, 1, 2, 3, this one is now the strong vowel. Did you hear that? Because it's the third last. Wow, did you know that about English? So English takes the third last sound and make it strong. Photograph, photography. We can use that in many other words. Physiotherapy. Therapy. You know that? Americans tend to break this rule a little bit, but the traditional English pronunciation, things like advertisement, Americans will say advertisement, but the traditional word is advertisement. So any English word that has more than 3 syllables has the third last strong. Now, this is what I want to show you. Watch this. In the Olympics, how do you know that the gold winner is really special? Because the silver one and the bronze one, that's actually what happens. So we put the silver one down there, the bronze one down there, so the gold one looks strong. And that's what we do in language. We say if this one is strong, then we take that one and put it down, and that one we put it down, so this one goes up. What I mean by that is photography. So this vowel replaces every English vowel if it is not in the strong position. Photography. So when you go back and look at words here, like this one, let's have a look at some of these words. Possible, traffic, message. Can you hear that? It's now the weak sound. Now, the reason I'm telling you this in an Indonesian lesson is because you bring this system into Indonesian learning without knowing you are doing it. Like I said before, salamat datang. When you said salamat datang, let's write it phonetically. Salamat datang. Alright, so that's what you're doing phonetically, salamat datang. And of course, that's an accent there and an accent on the second syllable. So the 3-syllable rule only works for 3-syllable words. 2-syllable words don't have that rule. In fact, in English, we tend to make the second one strong. Datang instead of data. So can you see that that E, that upside down E or sound is key to the English pronunciation? Now, does Indonesian use that sound?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's circle the Indonesian vowels now. The Indonesian vowels, of course, we have I, and we have A, and we have O, and we have U. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have E, and we have E. The difference between Indonesian and English is simple. In English, every single vowel can become Every single vowel can become Indonesian, only one vowel is most of the time, and sometimes it's Do you see the difference? That's the key difference between Indonesian and English. Indonesian has a strict rule that you'll never... So when I learned Indonesian, I had to only remember one rule. Every time I see the letter E, is it E, or is it E? So I didn't know. I thought it was keju. Keju? I didn't know. But isn't it nice? I only have to focus on one vowel. In Indonesian, English has every single vowel turns into the. So, which of these two languages is complicated? English is very complicated, but here's my point. If you only know English, you will not see it as complicated. It's biasa, it's just normal to you. You bring that system of pronunciation into Indonesian. So that's really, really important for you English learners to know. What are we doing right now? We are becoming aware of our mouth. We're becoming aware of the sounds in our mouth. So, orthography, selamat datang. It's selamat datang, no, it's selamat datang. So that's a little bit about vocal, about vowels. Did anybody know there are so many vowels in English? Right. Just before I finish that topic though, there's something else you need to remember. Is that the other thing in English we have is called diphthongs, and I don't want to talk too long about this, but we have double vowels. For example, when I say, you say this word here, kode. Because it looks like kode, doesn't it? In English, it's not, it's code, which is actually k, o, u, d, code. So what we've done, we've taken the E at the end makes the middle one two vowels. Think about this. Code. Can you feel your tongue moves up? Code. And English has this word. So the word hi isn't hi at all. It's like he. We know, of course, in Indonesian we write it like that. Ai. So ai. I. Can you feel the tongue move? I. It's two vowels, isn't it? It's not one. I. How are you? How are you? Whoa. I can say hi, how are you just by saying that. Hi, how are you? Just moving the vowels around. Just double vowels. So that's English. Is that interesting? Yeah, that's English. Now, I want to change this focus a little bit, and I want you to look at the other sheet you have on the other side. That's called phonetics. Phonetics is understanding sounds. Phonology is when we put sounds together. Now, I'm going to talk to you as an Indonesian class. You're still English speakers, but you're learning Indonesian now. Kemarin saya bilang, bagaimana kita tahu kalau potong menjadi memotong, not menotong or mengotong? What's the answer to an Indonesian person if I said it to you? Native speaker Indonesian now. What's the answer? How do you know it's memotong, not menotong? What's the answer? Saya mengerti, ya selalu menjadi, tapi mengapa? Why does it become that? Yes, Liam? Exactly. Because of the position of your mouth. But the problem is, when we teach Indonesian in Australia, we don't teach that actually. We just teach the rule. If M becomes this, it's just a list of letters. What I want to show you now as English speakers is that what is happening in your mouth affects the way you speak Indonesian. So, I want you now to have a look at, by the way, that's all the vowels yang mungkin. Okay? Itu semua yang mungkin di mulut. Ada lebih dari 20. Ya. Banyak sekali yang menarik. Kita harus mencari huruf yang baru karena memang tidak cukup. Bahasa Inggris sebenarnya ada berapa huruf? Ada 26. That's how many we write. But we speak more than 45. 45. So it's almost twice the number of sounds than letters. So English is very complex. Alright, what I want to do now is look at this. Alright, you have in front of you a chart with some sounds on it. We have d, and k. I don't want you to say p or m, that's not helpful. And up the top left you have g, n, b, t, and What I want you to do is see if you can put the letters in the boxes that match the sounds. Now, what I mean by this is, kalau kiri ke kanan dan ke atas ke bawah ada hubungan. Misalnya ada P dan M dan salah satu di atas ada hubungan. P dan K dan salah satu di atas ada hubungan. Hubungannya ke atas ke bawah dan kiri kanan. Bisa coba ya? Have a try. See if you can fill in this. Pertama, mungkin yang paling gampang, P dan M itu semua maksudnya yang hilang adalah B. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I want you to say after me. Ready? Now, if you're a coolie, if you're deaf, you can still see what I'm saying. Apa, amma. Semuanya dipakai, semua memakai apa? Bagian mulut kita, bibir. So we call this bibir. So these are lip sounds. Bibir. Apa, amma, abba, all with our lips. If you are deaf, you can read people's lips, you can always see. But sometimes orang tuli nggak bisa membedakan apakah itu P atau B, because they just see the lips together. The next one, P dan K, sorry, P dan K dan T. Yeah. T. Now T, and what's the one over here? Now, I want you now to say after me. This time we're going to put A either side. Ready? After me. Atta. Adda. Anna. Now, I want you to stop hearing what I'm saying. I want you to do it again, and this time I want you to feel your mouth. Think about your tongue. Again. Atta. Adda. Anna. Now, did you feel your mouth doing it? So, tip of your tongue, right? So we call this, you can call it, whatever, I just call it, tongue tip. I'm not giving you the real words are bilabial and alveolar. These are the technical words, but just for the students, I just say the bibir or the lips and the tongue tip. Now, k, what's the next one here? G. And oops, yeah, that of course is because you know the problem with English. You look at this. I love this. Let's write three English words here that are all different. Oh, sorry, I forgot the first letter. It's singer, finger, and ginger. No. Sorry, it's singer, finger, and ginger. No. Sorry, it's singer, finger, and ginger. Oh my goodness, English is tricky, isn't it? So if I cover this, it's Inge, Inga, and Inja. Kasihan orang yang belajar bahasa Inggris. Kasihan kalian. It's amazing you learn English. Because it's impossible, crazy, strange language. Who would learn this language? Siapa bilang bahasa Inggris itu gampang? Gak pernah orang bilang gitu ya. Gak pernah. I don't know. Okay, let's have a look now. So, now, follow after me. Akka, aga, anga. What part of our mouth are we using? It's not just throat, it's actually the back of our tongue. Okay, so it's tongue back. Tongue back. Yeah. Now, because throat would be much more as Allah. It's like an Arab sound. This is more English. All right. Now let's talk about Indonesian. This is where it gets interesting for people learning Indonesian. So we know that Okay. Again, potong menjadi memotong. Let's have a think about what has happened in our mouth. What's the first thing that we notice when potong menjadi memotong? What's the first thing that happened? Apart from adding ME. Okay. P-nya hapus. Yeah. So P-nya hapus dan tambahnya M. So two things. So P dihapus dan M ditambah. Right. Let's go to the next word. Tulis menjadi menulis. Nah, sekali lagi T-nya dihapus, N-nya ditambah. Can you see the pattern? Kalau lihat di sini sama, garisnya sama. Yang ketiga, kirim menjadi mengirim. So K dihapus, eng, eng ditambah. Again, wow, menarik, ya kan? Menarik. Nah, bagaimana yang ini? Kalau B, bantu, membantu ya? Salah, membantu. Oh, kenapa? Kenapa begini? B-nya tetap ada, M-nya tambah, so B dan M garisnya sama. D-nya, oke, dorong misalnya, jadi mendorong. Again, sekali lagi D, D-nya memang tetap ada, N-nya ditambah, D ada, N ada. Nah, sampai sekarang kita lihat itu di sini ada patternnya, ada pattern yang konsisten. So if I say G, you know it's going to be the same. So for example, gigit menjadi meng. Now this is where a lot of Indonesian learners get it wrong. Ada dua G, because the first one is eaten up by the N. N itu apa? Suka makan G. Ya. Jadi kalau N itu G, wow, bukan enggak tapi Banyak anak yang bilang mendengarkan ya. Saya mendengarkan. Tidak, karena N-nya lapar. Menggigit. Ya. Seperti itu, saus kecap manis itu bango, bukan bango. Bango. Ya. Nah, sekali lagi. G tambah eng tambah. Wow, is this interesting? Can you see the pattern? Now, the reason I am showing you this, students, is because you are learning Indonesian as a second language. It's very helpful to see a pattern. Nah, saya sering sekali, saya bertemu dengan orang Indonesia, orang asli Indonesia, katanya, kenapa kalian tahu, potong menjadi memotong? Dan jawabannya biasanya, oh, keluar saja begini, keluar saja. And that's true, itu benar. But if you're a second language learner, it's not automatic. It does not come out of your mouth automatically. So what I'm trying to say to you is students need tools. This is a tool that I have developed myself, but many thousands of students in Australia use this tool now as a better tool than the one in the textbooks. The textbook simply says, these are the letters, just use the ME plus M plus N plus NG, give us these letters. Now, is this all of them? Memang masih ada, misalnya ada S, surat dari menyurat, and there's a few others, but really this is 95%. Most of our Indonesian vowel kata kerja will be in this system. I wanted to say one more thing though. Did you know in English and Indonesian, coba lihat nih, even in English, when we begin with these sounds, we have to go this way. For example, look here, amber, and computer. Look, the next one, Andrew, and. But sometimes we have spelling that is not consistent with our pronunciation. For example, Angus, the name. It's not Angus. Angus, kasihan. Angus, yeah? But what about the word think? Think and sink. We are not really saying thin, are we? Thin. We're saying thing. Can you hear that? So in English, we're not really pronouncing those sounds. And I show you this example because Indonesian and English dua-duanya sama. Sebenarnya semua bahasa di dunia sama. When you use one of these sounds, you always follow with the same line. Because dalam kata lain, M kalau dilepaskan menjadi B. Coba. B. Or P. Kalau in, it's simply T is from in. And the same way, it's very difficult to say or it's hard to say that. So all of the languages in the world generally follow the same pattern. It's important to understand that for learning Indonesian. Can you see that why I'm explaining this to you? Alright, that's just a few examples of grammar, of linguistics, and that's what I wanted to show you. Satu lagi. We're just going to look at a couple more, then we're going to look at some curriculum before we have lunch. Okay. Ada pertanyaan? Ada pertanyaan? Sebelum kita mulai. Ada pertanyaan? Kalian boleh pakai sistem ini di dalam pelajaran bahasa Indonesia, itu bagus karena belajar. Yeah, that's a good question. How do we practice? How does it become natural, automatic? And the key is when we understand what we are doing in our own mouth, it helps us to become more aware of the sounds in our mouth. Awareness is really important. It's not until I become aware of what I sound like that I think, is that how I sound like? Oh, so when I say, for example, American English say a word like bukan Iraq tapi Iraq, and they're not aware that they're saying Iraq, not Iraq. They're not aware of that, so they need to see in the vowels what is happening in their mouth. So awareness is the key. But I want to show you something else, and I'll get back to you more on that one. But in a moment, look at this word here. Okay, you are Americans, Australians, you're New Zealanders. How do we say that word? Barang. Barang. No, it's barang. Barang. Can you say barang? I can't say it. I can say barang. Does anybody have students who will say barang? Anybody? Yeah. Do you try to help them to say barang? Have you found that some students you try, but they cannot get it? All right. I want to show you a technique to help them to use the R correctly. Okay, this is really helpful. Now, pertama ada dua macam R dalam bahasa Indonesia, memang kita tahu. Misalnya ada barang, ada barang. Okay, sekali lagi, barang, barang. Now we know Indonesian can be barang or can be barang. Yeah. Now, not everybody can say barang, but I promise everybody can say barang. But your students, many of them think I cannot do it. But here's the trick. You show them this English word. Now, you say butter. If you come from England, you say butter. But if you come from Australia or America, you say butter or butter. So let's just focus on the Australian one, for example, butter. Oh, I like to put some butter on my toast. Butter. Now, did you know that when you're saying butter, you're actually saying barang. Listen again. Butter, barang, butter, barang. It's exactly the same sound. But in your head, it's not the same. So you cannot, the students will say, oh, that's butter, that's barang. Butter, barang. No. You have to take this R and you have to put that inside it. So instead of saying butter, or American, butter, barang. You focus on this, what's happening in your mouth. Let's try again. Butter, not butter like England. Butter, barang. Can you feel? The answer is the key. The most important is feel the sound. Feel the sound. Feel the sound. Don't look at the words on the picture. Don't look at the page. Feel the sound. Butter. What's happening with your tongue? Butter. So these are the exercises that you need to work with your student. I want you to say it and feel it. Butter. They can all say butter. They use it every day. They know what butter is. They have toast every morning. So they say butter. They can now say butter. And once you can say butter, because A either side is the easiest form, once you say butter, you can start to move to orang, iri, buru. You can start to use different vowels. So this is really important to help them. Is this interesting?
Yes.
Yeah, very helpful. So that's an example of how we teach second language, right? And these are some tools that, if you want, next week I can work with your students if you want. I can do some things like that. All right. Keep it. Okay. All right. So we've got. I just want to spend maybe 10 minutes, and then we're going to look at some resources. Okay, we'll have a little break. Two more things I want to focus on. This is for people who are learning Indonesian. Now, you know, I mean, this may be helpful to you or not. When do we say, for example, if I say bukan versus tidak, and you're trying to teach your students, when do you say bukan and when do you say tidak? Now, maybe you have a good method of teaching this, but in my experience, students struggle to understand this. Sometimes students need a graph or a chart. It took me a while to realize this, but when you make a quadrant like this, and you say, this is positive, this is negative. Here we have nouns, and I'll start again, sorry. If I say the question in English, you have to start in English. John is happy. John is happy. The next sentence is, John is a doctor. So when I say John is happy and John is a doctor, they both have the word is. Are they the same word? Yeah, you know that, but people who speak English don't understand that. So this is where I'm saying, when you teach Indonesian, start with English, because they understand English. If you just teach the Indonesian, they may get it, they may not. If you teach the English. So I question first, John is happy. John is a doctor. So let's look at those two sentences. John is happy and John is a doctor. Now, here's a question. If you were to write in maths, John is what kind of word? A noun. Happy is what kind of word? Adjective. John here is a noun. What's a doctor? A noun. Now, let's bring mathematica into sentences. What kind of mathematical word, symbol would you use for is here? And what kind of mathematical symbol here? We'll do this one first, it's easier. equals doctor. John is a doctor. John is happy. It's not John equals happy. It's John tambah. Because John is saying John is happy. So it's John plus quality about John. So can you see noun plus adjective noun equals noun? So over here we can say noun plus adjective noun. Noun. If we say a noun plus adjective, and we have is, the Indonesian word for that is John is happy. What is it? What's the Indonesian word for is? No, well, not really. John senang. So put a 0. It's nothing. But if we're saying a noun equals a noun, it's adalah, right? Now let's do some more maths. Let's say John is not happy. It's now John, in the symbol, minus. John without happy. John not happy. So now we have noun minus adjective is tidak. And over here we have John is not a doctor. John is bukan. So we have noun not equals noun is bukan. Now this is a formula that makes a lot of sense to people who are learning Indonesian as a second language. Oh, itu bedanya tidak dan bukan. So if I say, oh, apakah pena ini merah? Apakah pena ini merah? Apakah pena ini merah? Tidak, tidak merah. Hijau. Apakah pena ini pena kamu? Bukan. So can you see, even though you're answering one word, tidak and bukan, it's an expansion or a contraction of a sentence that equals or minus, not equals or minus. Menarik, yeah? Okay, so that's another technique about the adalah. And also many students do not realize adalah is the opposite to bukan, and tidak is the opposite to nothing. So you don't need Indonesian. Now, of course, Indonesian in real time has exceptions to this rule, isn't it? Sometimes in Indonesian we can see, adalah senang, and you see something like that. Sometimes, I mean, in my experience, I just think, oh, that's wrong. But when I read real Indonesian in real Indonesia, it doesn't always follow the rules. That's okay. It doesn't have to follow the rules all the time. But it's good for students who learn Indonesian to have a system. This is a helpful chart or formula, if you like. Just one last one I want to talk about before we talk about have a little break. And this is a bit more complicated. All right, so if I say, for example, kerja, we know kerja has two forms. We can say bekerja and oops, sorry. Mengerjakan. Now, we know these are both called verbs. So do you teach the students about transitive and intransitive? Okay, so we know that be means intransitive, be means transitive, so they have transitivity. That's okay. And going down from here, we know that when we move from a verb to an abstract noun, we can say her, no, sorry, normally, but we actually don't have the R there, do we? Pekerjaan. So, obviously over here we have another word. Pengerjaan. Now, I don't know, you may use this technique or not, but I find this is helpful, this technique. If I show the students just those two words, pekerjaan and pengerjaan, I wonder how many of your students will actually be very confused. They say, oh my goodness, pekerjaan, pengerjaan. They just, what? What's the difference? Okay, persatuan, penyatuan. What's the difference? It just looks strange. It's like this inside little change. And many students, even at high level, struggle to understand these two words. So the question I have is, pekerjaan itu dari kata apa? And if you say kerja, it's like saying you come from your grandparents. Yeah, benar. But it's more true that pekerjaan comes from bekerja. Pekerjaan comes from mengerjakan. And that's the method of understanding the flow of the way we change the words. Now, for an English speaker who's learning Indonesian, it's very helpful to see this diagram. If you use this diagram, that's great. But I hope you're not just teaching these words. You're not just saying, all right, forget all this, these are the words. You can't just do that, because English speakers will look at this and say, it's too long, I can't understand this word, it's too long. So we have to understand the progression, always the progression of each word. Okay, itu beberapa saja system that I use teaching Indonesian to second language learners. I hope something out of what I've shown you in this session has been interesting. Yeah? Helpful? Okay, that's cool. If you want, if you have especially some of the senior classes, if you are interested, I can work on some of these things when I visit your school, but my focus on being here is not for me to teach, it's for you to teach and for me to encourage, help and resource you somehow. Schools, I'm going to show you a few examples of some textbooks. I'm not here just to tell you about our resources, say, well, this is just the only ones. There are a lot of resources in Australia. Our resources are a little different because they are not focused on just one full curriculum. They are adaptable as you may have used them, and that's why I think they're important. But I'm also going to show you some information about the textbooks that are available. But before I do that, yesterday I was showing you Ibu Pasar, the DVD, the story about going to market. And that's an exciting story about going to market. And it's very helpful, very easy. Notice what you notice about it is the language is simple, the language is repetitive, and each part of the story is designed by teachers. I mean, my wife and I are teachers. Many DVDs you might buy are not really designed for education. Do you see the difference? Teksnya kecil, cepat, ya, susah baca. So we want to make some resources really clear. The one thing that people find a little bit confusing is, apa ini teacher resource? If you have seen this, you're thinking it's not a DVD. It looks like the DVD, tapi ada teacher resource. So we have all of that. Ada 10 tema, tiap tema ada teacher resource. Di dalam ini ada 2 disk. Yang pertama resource disk, yang kedua teacher audio CD. Nah, resource disk adalah disk penuh dengan worksheets, puzzles, games, PowerPoint presentation, dan lain-lain. Kalau audio CD-nya adalah bacaan cerita oleh laki-laki dan perempuan. Ada juga yang dengan gaps for repeating the words. So it's very slow, so the students can repeat. I just want to explain a little bit about the worksheets. This is an example of some of the activities. This one is on classifiers. So we learned about, like you were learning about in the back there, sebiji, sesisir, seikat, sebuah, and so on. Other worksheets, examples of how to express like, dislike, what does it mean, makan, different words like that. This is for the most basic level, so SD, activity, a shopping list. So they're learning the words, you've learned the words from the playing the memory cards, using the big cards. Now the students can fill in the sheet. They have to write, for example, pakono, satu kelapa, 3 mangga, 1 labu. So hence you have to draw all the fruit and vegetables according to the shopping list. Ibu Ali, Pak Budi, 3 bawang, 5 pisang, and so on. For very basic, we don't say buah, kilo, ikat. We just use single words because the very basic students cannot always learn all of that. Conversation, di pasar. So a conversation about buying something at the market. Crosswords, for reinforcing vocabulary. Draw your favorite pictures, really basic. Drawing a shopping list. The English translation of the story, so the students have to translate. You may get them to translate to English the story. Homework sheets for parents, you can explain to the students what they're doing. Matching words and picture, they have to match bawang, cabai, terong, rambutan and so on picture. A project, you can design a market stall. So this is just an example of one of the lists. Spelling test lists, translation, spelling tests. I think spelling is important to give them spelling tests, even in Indonesian. Then, for example, we have the teacher notes. I give teacher notes about how to use it all. And then we have, oops. And then there's also listening tasks. So they have to listen and tick the box and so on. So there's a lot of worksheets in each one. That's just an example of some of the worksheets yang ada di dalam satu. Ada juga permainan bingo. So ada 4 lembar dan 4 orang bisa bermain ini. This one is matematika. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ada 10 judul. Okay, so all the things we have ini Fenty. Ibu ke pasar, ada berapa, which is about counting, basic ones for counting. Desa ku bagus, naik apa, matematika. What levels would you use this? Definitely for SD. But when you get to SMP, di kebun binatang saya anak timur. Tapi kalau misalnya orang barat ya yang belajar bahasa Indonesia pertama, so you have SMP, you have students who have really never learned anything. So things like tema-tema seperti yang di atas, ya, naik apa, desa ku bagus, cocok sekali untuk kelas-kelas SMP di Australia, paling cocok di SMP. And there's temanya more advanced, kotaku hebat, ikut mudik, and so on. Itu readersnya, ada juga teacher resource-nya, ada memory cards, matching squares, bingo games. Okay, velocity cards, so A3 or A4 size theme cards that you can use for all the themes. Ada display banners dan menurut pendapat saya penting sekali anak-anak dapat motivasi dan tahu bagaimana Indonesia. So I've made foto-foto yang gambar-gambar yang menginspirasi, so give inspiration to the students about Indonesia. This is just wall things like this. Dan ada DVD-nya. So ada 8 judul yang berbeda-beda. Okay. Nah, kalau kalian belum dapat order form dan mau, ada lagi di sini. Tapi kalau tidak dapat dari saya bisa ikut saja. Okay, that's a bit about inspired media stuff. I don't want to just talk about my own resources. I want to talk about other things. Okay, some of the other textbooks that are available include Bagus Sekali, Bersama-sama Lagi, Keren, Indonesian for Adults, Bersama-sama Selalu, Saya Bisa. Ada yang pakai Saya Bisa di sini ya? Saya Bisa. Ada beberapa buku lain. Yeah. If you want to see, I can send this to you. This image I might put as a resource if you're interested. Okay. Dan satu lagi yang baru yang menurut saya agak bagus. Dari kami kita. This is a teacher resource. This is quite a new resource in Australia that we're using now. It's got some sample pages there. I can send you this link to of the teacher resource. A lot of good information there, theories. It helps to develop a unit of work and so on. It's quite up to date, quite new. So that's a bit about our resources. One more I want to talk about though before we finish, and I'm going to actually just for fun, because I've done enough talking. We're going to play some games. So I'm going to bring around a set of cards for you, and I want you to play as though you're students. This is a game of memory. But before I do that, I want to explain something to you. Okay, just one more resource I want to talk about before we play a game. I am really concerned about one aspect of Indonesian, and that is, of course, numeracy. We wanted to talk for 5 minutes about numeracy. I've created a resource that I think is quite exciting for students to use, quite engaging, and it also teaches them to rely on numbers. When we think in Indonesian, we stop thinking in English. We have to move across. Every time I use an Indonesian word, I'm thinking in English. I use Indonesian word, I'm thinking in English. But when I do things like move outside of my learning and start using the language, it's no longer that I think about the English, I start using the language. Many times I say to the students, if you really want to do well in Indonesian, stop learning Indonesian, start using Indonesian. Stop thinking about it as a subject, now think about it as a way of expressing, as a way of communicating. One example of this is numeracy. We can use numbers. Matematika di Indonesia is actually a good way to do this. So tambah. We know satu topi tambah satu topi sama dengan dua topi. Well, that's fine. That's not plus, that's tambah. It's every time you see the orange symbol, it's tambah. So we move from this slowly to a little bit more complicated. 4 tas tambah 2 tas sama dengan 6 tas, and then slowly we move to this, and now we have equations. So 2 tambah 1 sama dengan. If you work through this slowly with the students, kalau sudah sampai di sini, 6, what are you going to say? Tambah 5 sama dengan. You're not going to say equals, are you? Because you've already gone through this systematically, and by the time you get to number 17, 18, 19, you're saying 9 tambah 7 sama dengan. It's an important system to develop to get the students sort of biasa. So that's the same, it goes through kurang, and then kali, and then it's nice and bright and interesting, bagi, and so on. And then they get some questions, okay? So the top one is, write out the sentences. So imagine the student, you write the sentences out. 4 bola. Yeah, so this is just pictures. You can make those pictures if you like, and but I know some students think, yeah, ini sort of boring, so let's give them really big numbers. So, for example, 3 miliar 200 juta tambah 5 juta, 6 miliar 100 juta kurang 2 miliar. Some students get excited about that. Oh, I can do this. What can you count up to? 10 billion? You know, they can do it. And so on. And all the answers are there too. You can see some of those numbers are very, very big. Okay? Extension tasks. Maths. Did you know maths is in everyday life? Tambah. Ayo makan tambah, tambah. Jam 1 kurang. Jam 1 kurang 10. Oh, so kurang is in time telling. Oh, mau beli ini tapi bisa kurang ya? Kurang, you can use it there for too. Kali. Sudah berapa kali di Indonesia? So it's normal everyday words. Bagi. Oh, mau makan pizza bisa bagi ya? Bagi. You can use bagi for sharing. So teach the students these words as everyday life words, and even boring things like maths becomes interesting for the student. Okay? And there's also, I like that one. Alright. I'm just going to bring around some cards for you to have a little game for 5 minutes before we go, because I've done enough talking. If you want to ask me any questions about the resources, I'm going to be at the back, but I'm just going to give you some things to play with.